Hello guys, and welcome back to another class of our course about the complete introduction to programming with Java. So basically in the past class we talked a lot about the for loop, and basically we created an application that works with the for loop and as well as the if function. In this class, what I want to do is basically practice a little bit more and creating something that is a little bit more advanced. So what I want to do is create a GPA generator. So basically how exactly this would work is pretty simple. So we'll ask a user to basically enter the number of courses that this person has. So this would be the first step. The second step is pretty simple. It's creating an array where the person will enter the grades for each of the courses. So once all this is done, we are going to convert, we're going to calculate the average of all the courses, and based on the average, we're going to rank the person. So basically give the person an A, an B, a C, a D, or simply tell to the person you have failed your semester. So pretty simple. So how exactly we'll do this? So let's start. Basically, the first step is pretty simple. So it's actually creating a basically a text that will ask our user how many courses you have. So how exactly we do this? So we saw it. It's pretty simple. We simply write down .out.println, and what exactly I want to ask my user. I want to ask him how many courses you had. Oh, there is something right here. This semester. There we go. All right. So right now that we have this, if we run it, we'll be able to ask our user how many courses this person had this semester. All right, so right now that all this is done, the next step is pretty simple. We need to store this somewhere, and basically, well, we don't need to store it yet. What we need to do right now is simply ask our user. We need to write down the function that will ask our user to do it. So what exactly we're going to use for it? So pretty important, we're going to import our scanner first of all, and then we're going to use it. So scanner, and as always, we'll call it scan. And here we're going to create a new scanner. There we go. All right. Little problem right here. All right. So when this is all done, what we're going to do, we're going to create a variable that will be, in this case, an integer. We're going to store the answer of the person. So we'll just write it down. So int, and the variable, we can call it whatever we want. Let's call it x. And this variable will be scan dot next. And since we're working with int, we want to store an integer. We'll write down int. It's not a string, it's an integer. So pretty important. We write down int. All right, so when all of this is done, it's pretty simple. Now we are going to create our array. Now what exactly will be the length of our array? So we don't know yet how many courses the person had, but we created a variable that will store the number of courses that the person will have. So basically, if we ask our person how many courses you have, the person will tell us I have X amount of courses. So basically we are able to create a variable that will, well, we'll be able to create an array, that will tell us, hey, I have X courses. So how exactly we do this? So pretty simple. We can use integers for this, or we can use doubles. I personally like to use doubles, so I'll just write down double. And in this case, how exactly we are going to call our variable? Let's call it number of courses, so just NB courses. Oh, little problem right here. There we go. And what exactly we'll create? We'll create a new array right here. So basically new. And since it's a double, we'll write down double. Now, what exactly will be the size of our array? The size of our array will be X, because once again, the person will have X courses. So this is our first step. Right now, what exactly we have wrote? So we asked our user, hey, how many courses you have this semester? This element right here, or this line of code right here, simply allow us to basically ask it to our user, basically by creating a new scanner. And then right there, basically we are storing in this variable, so in the variable X, the number of courses that the person has. Next step is pretty simple. We are going to create a variable that will have, we'll create an array that will basically contain an X amount of courses, because this array, we are going to fill it a little bit later with the use of for loops. Last thing that we are going to create, we are going to create a variable that we are going to call sum, that will be used a little bit later to calculate the average, because once again, we need to calculate the complete average of the courses. So pretty simple, we'll just create the variable right now, and we'll use it a little bit later. You'll understand why. So for the moment, this variable is equal to 0. All right, so when everything is done, pretty simple, what we're going to do is create our for loop. So for, and as always, we're going to use I as a variable in our for loop, is equal to 0. So basically, we're going to start the calculation from 0. Then we're going to finish the calculation when the array, when the number is greater than the array length. And finally, on each calculation, array, little problem, it's, number of courses. There we go, it's number of courses. Okay, great, we got it. All right, so, and finally, we are going to grow the number of basically we're going to grow the number by 1 each and every time. And how exactly we write it down, it's I++. So pretty simple. Great, so when it's all done, what we want to do is simply print the result. So basically what's going to happen is that we are going to, in this case, ask our user, what is your average for a certain course? So for course 1, for course 2, for course number 3, for course number 4, until we reach course X. In this case, if we have 5 courses, it's going to be 5. If it's 10 courses, it's going to be 10. So pretty simple. This is for this line of code. So let me just finish the first for loop that we are going to have that will allow us to ask our user a certain question. All right, so next step is simply writing down what exactly we are going to ask our user. So here, enter your average for the course. And what exactly is the course number? So in this case, the course number will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But in real life, there is no 0. So we'll start automatically from 1. So it's going to be I plus 1. Pretty simple. And just add 2 little points. There we go. All right, we have everything that we need right now. So right now, if we run all this, what's going to happen? So let's just check out. Oh, little problem right here, a dot, comma. All right, so if we run everything. First question, how many courses you have this semester? So let's say I have 5 courses. So what's happening right now? It says enter your average for course 1, enter your average for course 2, for course 3, etc. So what exactly we need to do is pretty simple. First of all, we need to put it in lines. So basically we're going to write down print ln right here. So it's going to be a little bit more nicer to see. How many courses you have this semester? So we had 5 courses. then enter your average. So basically we want to have something that looks like this. So the next step is pretty simple, is actually creating, well, basically asking our user to fill up all this. And how exactly we'll ask our user to fill up all this? Pretty much the same way as we did right here. So with the scan dot, in this case, int. And basically this is exactly what we're going to, oh, no, sorry, for with dot double, because our array is a double. So pretty simple. We are going to write down our name of our array that we are going to fill. So number of courses. And in this case, we want to fill it. And what exactly we want to do? We want to fill it with booleans. So if you guys have written integers right here, you should write down int right there as well, because if you can't work with two different variable or data types, sorry. All right, great, here we go. So until now, everything works pretty fine. So if we run our app just to see what it looks like. So how many courses you have this semester? Let's say I have 3 courses. Enter your average for course 1. I had, I don't know, 20%. Course 2, 30%. Course 3, 40%. And yeah, that's it. So until now, this is the basic application that we have. So the first step was really asking our, asking the person how many courses you have and what is your average for each and every course. Now we need to calculate the length of, well, not the length, sorry, the average of our users. So there are many ways that you guys can do, you can use to basically calculate the average for all the courses. So it's possible to do it manually. So in this case, you create a variable where you will calculate everything together. So basically you will create, let's say, a variable that you guys will call, I don't know, average, for example. And there we go, double average. And here you will basically calculate all the elements together. This will be your sum. And then you will divide your sum by the number of courses, or basically by the length of your array. But once again, this will take a lot of time. So how exactly it will work? So it's going to be number of courses, in this case 0, plus number of courses 1, plus 2, 3, 4, etc. until you reach, in this case, 5. But let's say, hypothetically, the person has 100 courses. So it's going to take a lot of time for you guys to calculate it. So it's not necessarily the best way to do it. So how exactly we're going to do this? We're going to proceed with the use of a for loop. And this is where basically this little function, well, not this function, this little variable right there will be useful for us. So let's do it. So basically what we're going to do, we're going to use the for loop, and basically this for loop will simply calculate for us the sum of all the elements. Then after that, you guys will be able to simply calculate the average of everything with another calculation outside of the for loop, of course. All right, so we're going to create our for loop right here. And pretty simple, as always, the conditions will be pretty much the same because we're going to work with this array right there. There we go. All right, so since our conditions are the same, we can just copy the conditions. All right, now what we're going to do, it's a simple line of code. So basically we have our sum. So basically our variable sum will be equal to the sum of all the arrays together. So basically what's going to happen here is all the elements inside of our arrays will be addition together, and until we reach a number that is higher than the number of elements that we have inside of our array. So we'll just write down equals sum plus number of courses, which is the name of our array. Courses. Great. And what will be the number of courses that we have? So basically it's I. So we want to have an addition of all our course numbers. So until now, everything should work pretty fine. The last step, well, right now we have the first part of our calculation. So the first part of our calculation is calculating the sum of all the averages. But, well, the sum of all, the sum of all the averages of all the courses. But the last step of the calculation is calculating the complete average of all the courses. So this will be our last step of calculating the average. So it's not that complicated. We can store it inside of a simple variable that we can call average. So let's do it right here. So basically our variable will be a double because our average can have a half point. So basically 80.5 or 81.5. So double average will be equal to our variable sum, which is right here, divided by, here we go, by the length of our array. So in this case, the length of our array is x. So divided by the length of our array. So in this case, our array is number of courses. Here we go. Dot length. Great. So until now, everything works pretty fine. So if we want to check out the average and be sure that everything is great, what we can do is pretty simple. We can just take this and test it right there. Your average is... So once again, this is not yet the end of our application, but we just want to test what it looks like. Great. So right now, let's try it out to see what it all looks like. There we go. So if we run our app, as always, the first step is pretty simple. It's asking us how many courses you had this semester. Let's say I had 5 courses, which is pretty simple. Enter your average for course 1. So in this case, how much I had in course 1. Let's say I had 90%. Course 2, I had 80%. Course 3, I had 75%. Course 4, I had 89%. And course 5, I had 100%. Your average is 86.8. So a little problem, just adding some spaces. Great. So right now we know that everything works pretty fine with our application. So right now, what is the next step? So we don't need this line of code anymore. Now we need to create our if function. So right now, basically in our if function, what exactly we are going to have? So we need to set up all the conditions to create our GPA, well, not our GPA, but basically transforming our numbers into letters. So let's say if it's greater than 90, well, our conditions are simple. In my opinion, we're going to use 4 conditions. So condition number 1, if it's greater than 90, you have A. Well, if your average is greater than 90. If your average is between 90 and 80, you have B. If it's between 80 and 70, you have C. If it's between 70 and 60, you have D. And if it's less than 60, in this case, or any other answer, the system will tell you you failed. So pretty simple. So let's try it out. So first thing that we need to write down is if. So we are going to use the if function right there. And the first condition is pretty simple. So average, our variable average, is greater than, in this case, 90. So if we have more than 90, we can return, so system you have A. Great. Just copy all this. Great. So this is our first step. So if the person has more than 90, the person has A. Then second condition. So how exactly we write down conditions? So else if. Just make it a little bit more aesthetic because it's not aesthetic. Else if, great. Now it will be way better. So the second condition is pretty simple. If it's between 90 and 80, so 90 greater or equal to, if 90 is greater or equal to our average, and how exactly write down the and sign like this, if the average is greater than 80. We want to return what exactly? So in this case, we want to return you have B. You have B. Next. So the next condition is pretty simple as well. So what we are going to have as a condition right now. If it's between 80 and 70, you have C. So this is exactly what we're going to write down. So basically, if it's between 80 and 70, you have C. Great. So until now, everything works pretty fine. We can even copy the whole thing. And the last condition, if it's between 70 and 60, you have D. So pretty simple. Right now we have all our conditions. Well, no, we have another condition that is left. So if it's less than, in this case, 60, or if the person writes anything and it becomes more than 100, we are going to automatically return to the person, you have failed. So it's possible to do it right now. Or let's make it a little bit better. So instead of writing down a last condition that will be just the else condition, let's write down another condition that will be less than 60. So let's just copy the first average. Great. Here we go. All right. If the average is less than 60, so we will return you have failed. And if it's anything else, so else, we just return please try again. Please try again. Great. So right now we should have everything that works pretty fine. So let's just run our code to verify that everything is good. So it looks like there is no mistake. So we'll try it out. So basically, step one, how many courses you have this semester? I have 5 courses. What is your average for course 1? 100%. What is your average for course 2? 55%. For course 3, 75%. Course 4, 80%. And course 5, let's say 90%. You have C. So your average is C because it calculates the average. So we cannot see the average, but it's possible to add another line of code that will say your average is X and you have C. So basically right now what we have just did, based on the number of courses that the person has, and based on basically the average on each course, we are able to give a letter to this person. So we have converted its average into a letter, which is pretty cool in my opinion. So let's just review once again the code and see what we have created. So step one, pretty simple. We have it right there. Simply importing everything. So we need the scanner for the purpose of this course. Right now in the code, first step is pretty simple, is asking our user how many courses the person has. So we simply write down this line of code to ask him. Then we need to store everything. So we're going to use the scanner method to do it, store it inside of a variable. So basically it's inside of this line of code that we are going to ask our user. And with this line of code right here, basically we are, well, we importing and having our scan right there. We're creating a variable scan that will be used. Then we store everything inside of X. So inside of the variable X, everything will be stored. And this is what is used to ask our user how many courses the person has. Basically, X is the amount of courses that the person will have. Then we create a array that will be a double. The type of the array will be double because courses can have commas. So basically can have decimals. So your course average could be 85.5, for example. And basically we are going to store our X inside of the array because the number of courses that we have is equal to X. The sum, once again, it's used a little bit later, the variable sum. Then next thing, we are creating our for loop, and basically the for loop is used to ask our user what exactly is your average for each course. Why exactly we create a for loop? Because this way it's way easier to ask, and it will automatically ask this question to the user. So basically it asks the first question, we answer to it. It asks the second question for the second course, third question, fourth question, etc. So basically how exactly the for loop works, as always, we have our three conditions. So we start counting at 0. The course length should be between, well, the number of counts should not exceed the number, should not exceed number of elements inside of the array number of courses. And finally, how exactly we count everything. We are counting by doing +1 each and every time. Then the question that we are going to ask our user, enter your average for the course and then the number of the course. And then we ask our user with this line of code to enter its average for that course. When it's all done, with this line of code, we are able to have all the averages for all the courses. Then this line of code right here, so basically this for loop that has the same conditions as this one, what I'll do, it's pretty simple. It will simply calculate the sum of all the averages together. So we are going to create a variable inside of it that will automatically calculate all the sums right there, because we are going to, well, we use number of courses is equal to I, and basically what it's gonna do, it will simply calculate sum plus number of courses. So sum plus one, course number 1, number 2, number 3, etc. When it's all done, basically the last thing to do to have our average, it's pretty simple. It's creating a variable that will be called average, and inside of it we'll divide the sum by the length of the array. So this is the formula, the basic formula of calculating an average. It's basically all our elements, the sum of all our elements divided by the number of elements. This is exactly what we've done. So right now we have our average for all the courses. The final step is basically using our if function to transform our average into a letter. So in this case, if the average is higher than 90, we'll print A until 60. If it's less than 60, we are printing you have failed. And if it's anything else, so basically if it's anything that is higher than 100, it's impossible. So we are going to ask our user to try again. So right now we put everything together, and you guys should see that basically it's possible to do really interesting things with the for loop. So that's it for this class, guys, and see you all in our next class.